Hey everyone, it's Kong again, and here's another episode of Should You Summon? As always, I'm going to be presenting high-level overviews using these 4 criteria to help you decide whether this banner is worth your hard-earned vouchers and crystals. So let's get right into this Raid Up banner featuring Alustriel and the Sage of the Trees, running from September 2nd to the 15th. As a Raid Up banner, you have a 40% chance of getting each on-banner hero, with the remaining unlucky 20% reserved for any off-banner hero in the normal summoning pool. First up, we have Alustriel. And Alustriel is a highly mobile archer, helped along by her talent, which lets her move through up to 4 defensive tiles at no cost. She also has a unique helmet that lets her ignore guard if she attacks from forest, grassland, or mountain tiles, making her functionally a long-distance assassin. Her assassination potential is further amplified by her 3-cost skill, which converts 2 enemy buffs into random debuffs before battle, and gives her a 20% damage boost for each buff converted this way. She's a member of Legion of Glory, buffed by Ledin, Elwyn, and Grenier, Strategic Masters, buffed by Altemuller and Lanford, and Origins of Light, buffed by Dehart, Jugler, and Freya. For bonds, she unlocks the attack bond for Sissy White, and she just needs Matthew and Almeida for her own bonds. For content, in PvE, she's on faction for Valkyrie, Scylla, and Phoenix in the Eternal Temple, and her mobility could make her a pretty good Sheikah sweeper in the Phoenix fight. She's also on faction for Jormungandr, Hugin and Munin, and Sleipnir in Ancient Beckoning. As an archer, she's a top-tier option against Hugin and Munin in particular, useful for players who don't have Matthew as an archer. In PvP, her huge effective range makes her quite a threat and helps her zone out other long-distance strikers. Her situational guard-ignoring helmet and her buff-stripping, damage-boosting 3C make her one of the game's better assassins, but she does depend on terrain being just right, so she is pretty heavily map-dependent. For availability, she's not appearing on the upcoming banner schedule, so don't look for her to headline a banner before February 2022 at the absolute earliest. Next up, we have the Sage of the Trees. The Sage of the Trees is a well-rounded magical support unit who specializes in frustrating enemy movement. His talent boosts his int if there are allies nearby, and it makes it so he doesn't suffer melee combat penalties, which means he's perfectly capable of chipping in with some DPS. When he dies, he dispels all debuffs for allies within a decent radius, and hits tiles within this area with his signature terrain effect. This causes enemies with flying or cavalry-type movement to have to burn extra mobility to move on to these tiles, and it gives infantry or aquatic allies who move onto these tiles a Spirit Boots-like opportunity to move again after combat. His 3-cost skill is a big 3-line AoE attack that pushes enemies back and applies his terrain effect. It also has a passive component which is basically normal Landius's traditional aura, reducing incoming crit rate, range damage, and boosting healing effects. He also has Landius's classic self-revive passive skill Indomitable. He has an excellent unique helmet coming to global servers in November. It increases his unit range by 1, and casts his terrain effect on the tile the target is standing on, as well as all adjacent tiles. He's a member of Yeles Legends, buffed by Landius and Sigma, and Mythical Realm, buffed by Gizroff and the Sage of the Trees. His faction buff for Mythical Realm increases range damage dealt by 12% and removes a debuff if you end your turn without dealing damage. For bonds, he unlocks the attack bond for the upcoming new character Mariandel. For his own bonds, he needs the Knight of Mystery for his defensive bond and Listel for his attack bond. For content, in PvE, he's on faction for Phoenix in the Eternal Temple and Fenrir and Nidhogg in Ancient Beckoning. I had to use him in my high-scoring run on Fenrir, but there are definitely way better options than him out there. On the PvP side, he's still a powerful and dynamic meta pick for Apex Arena. Being able to slow down characters like Ares and Elwyn can prevent you from getting rushed by high-mobility units. The push from his 3C can be deadly late in a match when the fog is closing in, but it can also be used tactically to push tank-locking threats like Jugler away from your units. If the enemy has good ways to get rid of terrain effects, for example using Helena, Licorice, Maya, or their own Sage of the Trees, then he can be frustrated. For availability, he's not appearing on the predicted banner schedule after this, so he won't be headlining any new banners before February 2022 at the earliest. Alright, here's the quick and dirty. We have Alustriel, who's a highly mobile archer, solid for PvE and PvP. Her unique helm lets her ignore guard if positioned correctly, and she unlocks the attack bond for Sissy White. We also have Sage of the Trees, who's a PvP-focused magical stalling and support unit with terrain effects. He unlocks the attack bond for Mary Endel, and he carries one of the faction buffs for Mythical Realm. By extremely popular demand, of course, the Notes for Noobs section is back again. If you're a newer player with a newer account, or you just don't mind a verdict-style summary to help you digest all that information, should you summon? Sage of the Trees is situationally useful, depending on what you do with your game. If you want to play a Mythical Realm team, then he's pretty much essential as their buffer. He's well-rounded and helpful, but you can get by without him. He's one of those tier of heroes that's very useful in certain specific types of boxes, but doesn't necessarily have to appear in every box. Alustriel is similarly situationally useful. She can make some general purpose stuff feel very easy, and she's a good option in many PvP boxes as well. Like Sage, she's good, but you can get by without her. There are a lot of characters in this game. Finally, just my usual reminder about upcoming banners. Next week we should be getting the Meteor Strike Destiny banner featuring Vincent, Claret, and Zerida. Vincent has only been on his launch rate up banner so far, so this is the first opportunity to get him on a Destiny banner. Claret and Zerida are both, of course, older characters, but they don't really swing around very often these days. The week after that is a couple of recurring Destiny banners, and then the next major update featuring Mew and Epsilon is right around the corner. Alright, so that's going to be it for this episode. I hope you found this video and these summaries helpful enough to warrant a little thumbs up. Let me know in the comments if you plan on summoning here, or if you're still trying to cobble resources together for Lucretia. As always, thanks. Man, traffic is just bananas right now. Oh, that's a f***ing helicopter. This is going to take a while to go by, but it is loud. I guess in the meantime I'll tell you a little story. Last summer I got into the habit of walking down the street. There's a little deli pasta takeout joint, and on the street between where I live and this little strip mall where the Sweet Deli is, there's like a big forest, like walking trails, dog park kind of place. Anyway, every Wednesday I would walk down to this deli, and if I felt a little adventurous, I would often duck through this park and walk through the trails. They have little bridges in there, like a couple brooks and creeks, babbling brooks, with ducks and stuff. There's lots of squirrels, just different wildlife. Anyway, one time I was running late. It was near the end of the summer, so days weren't as long. And I ended up walking through this forested, traily park as the sun was going down, and it started getting darker and darker. And then I noticed as I was getting further through, probably halfway through the park, all of a sudden there was no more sound of wildlife. No birds, no squirrels scrambling around, trying to find bird seed and stuff that people leave in there. In fact, I noticed I couldn't even hear the sound of the rivers bubbling under the bridges. Everything was perfectly silent. And I got out my phone because I wanted to shine the flashlight on the phone. But my phone's battery, which was supposed to be full, the phone wouldn't turn on. Oh, anyway, the helicopter's gone. Okay. Where was I? As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next Should You Summon. Extra special thanks, of course, to our Langrisser tier channel members for generously supporting the channel directly. Levitt, Derek Gunderson, Kyle Greer-Brown, William Householder, Kate Soon, and Jared Portela. And welcome to new members Eden Seal and Ilymerius. Thanks, folks.